will conduct municipal-wide sweeps to collect leaf and yard waste. To schedule a pickup, which you must do on one of the collection dates listed below, please fill out the curbside leaf collection program form. There's a 20-bag limit each collection date. The deadline to sign up for each date is the Thursday before the pickup date. There are 2 dates left, Saturday, November 12th and Saturday, December the 3rd. The Murraysville Recreation Murraysville Community Library present Foot Locker Outreach Program World War I. Soldiers and Sailors Foot Locker Outreach Program is a goal to educate people of all ages. This presentation will focus on a soldier's life in World War I, including what they wore, equipment carried, and experiences they went through. Artifacts from the museum's collection will be highlighted, as well as stories about the sacrifices of local veterans. This is scheduled for Tuesday, November 1st at 6 p.m. The Municipal Building Council Chambers. It's a free program, www.murraysvilleparecreation.com. For more info and to register, or it's 327-2100 extension 131. Lastly, Murraysville Parks and Recreation Department and Community Library present Darren Miller, a Franklin Regional graduate. Darren became the first athlete to complete the Ocean's 7 marathon swim across 5 continents on first attempts to benefit the Children's Hospital Foundation. He is excited to share these life-changing experiences and his mindset around achieving the impossible. Join us for a wonderful evening of adventure. We will be collecting donations to the local nonprofit SLAM to assist with repairing the handicap access for fishing along Sloan Creek. This event is Tuesday, November 15th at 6:30 p.m. Murraysville Council Chambers, please register at murraysvilleparecreation.com. Again, more info, 327-2100 extension 131, and that concludes my announcements for the evening.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. That brings us to comments by the Chief Administrator, Mr. Nestico.
Only a few comments for this meeting. We are well underway with budget preparation. Staff and Finance Department has been working diligently to begin putting together the budget for 23 in anticipation of presenting to Council. And from a public works standpoint, we're just wrapping up a lot of the paving and overlay projects that were commenced this year. So things are moving along here as we enter into late fall, I guess.
All right, awesome. Thank you. That brings us to community input, where members of the community can say whatever they like, so long as it's 3 minutes or less. Thank you. Okay. I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce this. Paul Metzler?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Paul Metzler. I live at 6962 Berkshire Drive, Manordale Farms. I'm here asking your support in addressing a major issue that we have in the area, and that's the increased traffic noise on Route 22. Since the Pennsylvania Turnpike is closed down, or it didn't close down, but raised the fees, we're getting traffic coming off of Bedford, coming up to Altoona, and then coming down 22. We're also getting truck traffic coming from Interstate 80 across to avoid the turnpike and coming down. Everybody's pretty much aware of the increase in traffic along Route 22. This, along with the fact that the speed limit on there is 45 miles an hour, and if you go 45 miles an hour, they'll run you over. They'll push you up the road. The speed on that right now is running between probably 50 and 60 miles an hour. And this is generating a lot of noise. When we first addressed issues of noise on 22 was whenever they were going to widen the highway. We talked with PennDOT to try to see what could be done. At that time, they were telling us there wasn't a thing that could be done. They were actually going to improve the slope on the Manordale side of the road. Any of you who were around at that time know that they were going to strip all the trees off of it and take half of some of the people's yards. We were unable to get PennDOT to respond until Senator White started to give us support. Him and his assistant, Gina Jones, really started working on it. We also got Mayor Summer at the time and the council to come out, take a walk along the area, see what the impact was going to be. And with their support, we were able to save the trees. That's a good thing. The bad thing is the pollution's killing off all the trees right now. So, but what we want to do is address this issue. What they did, the major factor was, and at that meeting, by the way, they told us that the noise level was actually going to go down when they widened it to 4 lanes, believe it or not. That was their comment. And they said we did not need a sound wall. We do need a sound wall along that area. It's really getting bad. Give you an idea of what it sounds like on my deck. Now, this is just during the afternoon. This is about 100 yards away from it all day long. We're running about 73 dB. At times, we're getting over 80 dB of noise. The reason for this is that they took the asphalt up and put concrete down. The concrete is ribbed. And with that ribbing and the increased speed, the things that cause the noise is speed, volume, which we can do nothing about, and the material along the road and the proximity, which we are right next to the highway. So we're making a recommendation, a request, to pave this section from Harrison City Road to Berkshire Road with sound-reducing asphalt in all 4 lanes to eliminate that. That will cut that noise down. If you drop the speed by 10 miles an hour, or if you drop the noise level by 10 dB, you'll reduce that road noise and cut it in half. That's acceptable. I've taken soundings at like 62 miles or 62 dB. I can live with that. But we can't live with it. The second issue is the Jake brakes. I know there's been articles written in the paper about it, and we understand it is a safety issue, that the trucks have to have the capability to use them. But what they're doing is they're putting their Jake brakes on almost a quarter of a mile before the intersection and keeping it on all the way down, starting at 4 o'clock in the morning, especially Monday morning when the trucks are back on the highway. Add to that, recently, the Marcellus Shale well that's going in on City Road, we have those sandbox trucks and tanker trucks coming down eastbound on 22 and using the jug handle to get onto Harrison City Road to go over there. They are putting their Jake brakes on, sometimes 3 and 4 trucks in a row coming down there. Something has to be done. So we're asking for your support. We put together a letter. We also have a petition signed by 150 residents in Manordale Farms. Those were the ones that we were able to get to answer the door. We had over a 98% acceptance of the people that we called on. And we weren't able to get to all the houses, but that's our issue. So what we want to do is schedule a meeting with PennDOT, the state legislation, and the borough to see what we can do to solve this issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, Mike, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but I mean, we would absolutely attend that meeting, right? I understand 22 is a state road. We only have so much power over it, but I think we would have no problem attending that meeting and do what we can do to help you. It sounds like in the past, the Murraysville Council's intervention at least helped a little.
It definitely did. We couldn't have done it without you.
I will.
The one thing you can do,
Okay, thanks, Mayor.
yeah, the one thing that you can do is that when I talk to PennDOT, as far as putting up signs on Route 22 to restrict the Jake brake use. Second. We need bigger signs.
Did the recent sign I sent to Jill from up in Ford City get to your group?
No.
I'll send it to some one of you, because I agree with you, a bigger sign could possibly be a big difference. And someone told me it was up there, so I ran up there.
Well, there is a bigger sign at the up at the entrance of Murraysville, up toward the Delmont.
Right, this is,
That sign has been increased because the other sign was about this big.
this sign is probably
That would be nice.
this high, and it says at the top of it in yellow, it says truck alert. Now pay attention to what it says. It
Yes.
says reduce noise, limit use of engine retarders. So they're not telling them they have to do it,
Excellent.
basically asking them.
Excellent. I'd like to see 2 of those put up, one at Berkshire Drive and one of them down where that body shop is, because they will go from Berkshire Drive all the way down with those.
I
those
believe we
Jake
have to ask the state to put them up.
No,
get
the state says that's the responsibility of the borough.
We're okay? Okay.
All right. Also, if possible, flashing yellow lights to get their attention, or
Wait, go ahead, Jim has some input in that. We've had this meeting before with PennDOT over this noise,
Yeah.
on more than one occasion.
yeah,
The size of those signs are regulated by PennDOT.
Right.
Although it's the municipality's responsibility to erect them.
Right.
And purchase them, the size is regulated. So it'll be interesting to see how Ford City got a bigger sign than what we have posted out there now, because that's what they require.
Yeah, because it is on State Route 66.
So it'll take some
yeah.
investigation.
This one is on Ardmore Boulevard. But if you can't get the bigger sign, at least put those large triangles up and, if possible, flashing yellow light to get their attention. I like the wording of
Yeah.
what's on there rather than brake retardant prohibited within the limits of Annandale. But if we could do that, that would help. We appreciate the police being out there trying to watch the speed, but that's another issue. I'll tell you one other thing that I ran into while we were doing the survey, or the getting the signatures, is that a lot of the truck traffic now, and I don't know whether it's because of the way the GPSs on these trucks are sending them or not, they're going up Harrison City Road and down Clare Ridge Road. They're using the Jake brakes going down that hill. You really ought to put weight limits, if at all possible, on that within the municipality to stop those trucks from going in that area. It's dangerous because there's 2 entrances back onto Clare Ridge Road there, and those trucks come down there pretty quick.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if, I'll give you contact information for myself and Dennis O'Neill. We're the 2 that have been heading up this project
Yeah,
because we're the ones that are affected the most, I think.
absolutely. If you could leave your contact information with Mr. Nestico, we'll get in touch with you about the meetings. We're going to look into the sign that the mayor has,
Okay.
and we'll help out.
And Gina's been working with us for the past month or so. She's been talking to PennDOT. So if you can, you want us to have her reach out to you, or you want to reach out to her and Senator Pittman?
Yeah, might as well
appreciate
have
it.
her contact info as well. Yep.
Yeah, be great help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You.
Thank you for your input. Okay, we have no one else signed up this evening. For the good of the order, would anyone else want to give public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to liaison comments and committee reports.
412.
Let's start down this end tonight.
Yep. Sorry, I had it up here. Let me get it up.
Sorry.
So the Parks and Recreation Committee, we met last Tuesday, and it was actually a very, very busy meeting, very long meeting. We got a lot accomplished. Some of the things that we're discussing is pickleball. We've had a lot of requests for increase in pickleball courts. So the mayor had requested that we come up with 3 potential locations for adding pickleball or just relining some things in order for people to be able to play that. So we're looking very hard into that because a lot of the community has been requesting for that. So that is in the works and being discussed right now. We also discussed the park amenities. We were looking at, some people might have seen it when Carly presented the sports concrete balls of baseball, soccer, and football to be added at some of the parks. So we're looking at, we requested pricing, and we're getting pricing for that, as well as some of the concrete table games that can go in some of the parks. And we're implementing all of that with the community park survey that we did and what people want in the certain parks within the neighborhoods. The other thing that was discussed was the park volunteer project. This is pretty important. It's very tough to get people to volunteer and coordinate some of the volunteers that were needed for things in the community. So Selena on our committee, she's working with a marching band from FR. They're applying for a grant that will offset the cost for their trip to Hawaii that's going to be coming up, I think, next year. So they're going to need to schedule 160 kids in the spring to work volunteer hours. So that's going to be great. They're going to try and coordinate that with our parks and some of our volunteer needs that we have within that. So keep that in mind too. If you have any organizations or anything that need to do that type of stuff, we would love to hear from you because we can always use the help. We're still working on the trail stencils over at MCP. They're stenciling. It's a pretty time-consuming thing to do. So it's not something that we can get like a lot of children volunteers. It's pretty steady-handed because if you do it wrong, it's hard to get it off. So anyone that would like to participate in that or help, please contact the Parks and Recreation Department. We could certainly use your help. The senior Halloween party is Friday, October 28th at noon, and that's at the Senior Center. They'll need volunteers to help serve lunch and help with game activities. So anyone that would like to help out, please let us know. And then the trick or treat on the trail is Saturday, October 29th from noon to 2.
Awesome.
Make sure you register for that if you're coming.
Full since about a day and a half after they posted it.
Yeah, that's true. It already is full. That's right.
Wow.
Great event, though.
Yeah.
Keep checking though. If some people can't come and put their name on, we'll add it.
Awesome. Thanks, Mac. Jane?
Yep.
There was a regular school board meeting this past Monday, the 17th. There were no mutual concerns for council. The next meeting is a combined board plus committee of the whole on November 14th, and curriculum meeting is November 7th, and I'll be reporting on both of those.
Awesome. Thank you. Jamie?
Nothing new to report.
Okay.
Meeting next month.
Awesome. Tony?
Medic 1 meets tomorrow night.
Okay. Carl?
The Planning Commission met last Tuesday. I was under the weather. I was not there, but it was a series of hearings, if you will.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people would have picked that up, through the media.
Okay. Wonderful. Jason?
The library meets tomorrow. The only thing I wanted to mention was if there's anyone in the public who would like to apply for the open library board position, please do so.
Okay. Awesome. FTMSA meets tomorrow as well. That brings us to our workshop items, and we're going to begin with a discussion of the amphitheater project. So we had a presentation about this. We talked about it a little bit, wanted to take some time to think. I don't think we're going to finish discussion tonight, but this is just another chance. If anything's on council's mind, anything you would want outlined again, let's get some more questions going. Let's get some more info about this project. So council, questions, concerns about the amphitheater project?
We've recently had a lot of outreach about, through email from some concerned citizens, and I've noticed, sorry, I hate these microphones. Some questions, not just about the budget piece, but also about the kind of the backstory that led to the amphitheater. And in some of the emails that we received, there was a question or a request that perhaps we survey the community. And I believe that was done. And so for the folks that may not have been aware of that, I would like to know if we could add some backstory back to the record.
Certainly I can try. Now, I wasn't here whenever the survey was completed, but I do know that there was at least one earlier survey, a Parks and Recreation survey that was sent out. There's also the Parks master plan, if you will, or planning tool that was done that also incorporated the amphitheater and discussion about whether that would be something warranted in the community. So there was a study done, I believe it was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and that was one of the primary items that the community was seeking in that location and out of the municipality. So I can't speak directly to it. Certainly I could look into it and provide further information in a future meeting, but I don't know all the details of that study, being that I wasn't here at that time.
Jim, do you want to add context? Sorry to put you on the spot here, but.
As part of that comprehensive plan study, there was a survey done of the community. And I believe the amphitheater ranked #1 in that survey. I'd have to take a look at the study again. But there was efforts made to identify projects at the community park and throughout the community, and that was part of the effort.
Do you remember what year that was, Jim? Yes, it was also about 6 or 7 years ago.
I'm going to say probably 2017 or 18.
Do you remember roughly what percentage of folks that were surveyed responded, or what percentage of our?
No, I do not offhand.
If it was a very small group or a pretty large response?
The survey response, it was pretty typical expectation of a survey, similar to what we had with our neighborhood surveys for the community or neighborhood parks.
Okay, wonderful.
I do have a question with respect to the county itself. Is the county participating in helping with the funding of the amphitheater?
Well, if we are able to secure a block grant that we talked about for the restroom, that would be administered through the county's programming. But thus far, I don't believe the county has participated or provided any funding to date.
I have a question. So I had a few people reach out to me as well on email in regards to it. One of the questions that came up was like safety and security for events in the park. Does that lie on the responsibility of the individual booking it for an event? If it's an outside event that's not put on by the municipality, is that something our police would put? I mean, I wouldn't think that, but I mean, they would obviously, they patrol everything, but they just had a question in regards to that. I don't know that we've ever discussed that.
If I understand your question, meaning like security at the event if there were a concert?
Correct. If somebody rented the amphitheater out for an event that is not done by us as the municipality, which, you know, I'm sure that we can have dance recitals, things like that can go on there. Sure. What is there an expectation of security provided by the people having the event, or?
To be fair, I would say that that answer, probably not. Depending on the nature of the event, it may be warranted. But in my experience in the last community we had in the amphitheater, the events that were held there, depending on the nature of the event, we may have another police officer on staff on that evening or in the area during the event. But by and large, they were typically concert in the park type events, right. Pretty low key. Not really a need for additional security. Now, if we did have a larger event there and we felt that it warranted additional security, certainly we could look into that, whether it would be the performer or the individual booking the event, or even our own police department providing additional services. But at this time, the events that we would foresee, at least at the outset, would probably be smaller in scale, right. Smaller, whether it be smaller rentals or concert in the park type events that probably wouldn't necessitate additional security measures.
Is renting an integral part of the model for the amphitheater? Is that something that we have to do, or is that something that can be kept to just the community? First Amendment rights, pretty much anybody could put on whatever they wanted to there, even if members of the community might find it offensive. So where's the control in that?
Well, the control would be with choosing to rent or not rent the facility overall. If we didn't want to have a rental policy, maybe we only wanted to book our own events through the rec department. You know, again, typical events would be like a concert in the park type series, where we host the events, or we bring in the band, so to speak. Then we would have control over the facility. But if we chose to rent it out, then we would have less control over who could rent it. That would be no different than the community center or the clubhouse or any other event space in the community. If we choose to rent it out, then we do lose the ability to control some aspect of who would rent. Certainly there are some ways to control that, but they have great limitations with picking and choosing between different renters, I guess.
And who's choosing the events that we have here, that we host ourselves? Who's in charge of choosing those?
I would say the rec department. Thus far, obviously, that hasn't come to fruition yet. We're not there, but I would assume that the rec department would be the one in charge of that programming, similar to the other events that we see throughout the community.
And I think they schedule events for the infrastructure that we have. So, if there's room for farmers market, this, that, they have it. So with the addition of that, obviously they could increase different events that they could have for it. So you may see a big increase in things going on if we have the ability to put it on.
Just as a question, I didn't have a chance to ask Mac before the meeting, so I apologize, Mac, but you have a background in audiovisual, is that correct? Okay. With that, are there any state-of-the-art items that could be included in the amphitheater that are not?
There could be, yes, but it's a huge increase in cost if you added the audio and video to be built into the amphitheater. I talked to Mike even about it when we discussed it, is that we may do some wiring and set up to potentially do that down the road. But I think it would be more the acts that come would bring their own AV equipment. And I mean, if you tried to put that in there, you could probably double the cost of what the cost is now just on that type of equipment. It's just very expensive and very expensive to maintain and whatnot and control. So I think that's probably the road we would go. Is, you may put some infrastructure in, some wiring up in the ceilings before you do it and stuff, just for future use. But yeah, that'd probably be where it's at.
That would seem to make the most sense. And just to add into that also, obviously it's an outdoor venue, so they would be, any equipment, audio or video, lighting would be exposed to the elements to some extent. So we would want to be cognizant of that as well. In my experience, most of the community amphitheaters don't have those sort of installations. They simply provide maybe the venue or the band shell, so to speak, and then the performers typically have their own equipment or would like to use their own equipment even if there were things installed permanently. So it's a cost-cutting measure and also just kind of not only an economical decision, but a practical one. We may run conduit to create a sound booth area, but we wouldn't install any equipment there. It would be pretty much cost prohibitive at this point, and it wouldn't make much sense. So I agree with Mac.
And we've had, there's an expert in this in the community who's volunteered his time and consulted before anything has happened, has been out there. So he's kind of given a lot of input on the acoustics and positioning and what could be done. So it's been discussed and looked at pretty intensely.
Good.
Is there any concern about the sound disrupting any of the residential neighborhoods that are close during an event?
I can't say that I know if any specific studies or assessment of that has been done. I would think that the way that it's configured, facing the hillside, kind of riding up the hillside there, I don't know that there would be sound concerns, but I can't speak directly to that as to whether that was analyzed in advance of the location selection.
I think we all got emails about this today. And the biggest concern, I think, is security. Like Matt said, the one person that asked me, are we going to be prepared in case we have, I hate to say it, an active shooter? Because you're going to have people from all over the area now. It's not just going to be Murraysville people. So you don't know who's going to be coming into the park. Are we going to check them as they come through the door or what? So that's the concern of a few people now, so I thought we'd bring it up.
Sure. I mean, it's always a concern. Unfortunately, this day and age, you do have to think about those things. I would say by and large, again, in my experience, coming from a community that held the concert in the park type events, they don't typically draw a substantially large crowd. It's usually a more mature crowd. Some of it is dependent upon the acts that you book. as you bring in, more classical type music, older generation type music, things that aren't going to bring in a younger demographic, it typically, the audience follows that's, much more passive and less likely for concern. Again, from a community standpoint, we can certainly have our police be aware of events taking place and be nearby if need be, or patrol the area. But like I said, in my experience, I haven't seen too many events where there are issues or any sort of concerns that take place when community concert events are scheduled.
Yeah, I don't think those kind of things can be predicted. Obviously, I was just telling you earlier about a murder at the college that my daughter went to. It just takes one person. But speaking of that security, so would that affect our cost and liability insurance or anything like that, that we should be prepared for some type of event?
Well, I don't know that it would affect our policy. Certainly if something happened, that would have an impact. But unless we were to deploy a certain amount of security or police, there really wouldn't be an impact from an insurance standpoint or a liability standpoint.
One of the common feedback items that I got from the community in these emails and phone calls was reoccurring costs. In your maybe in your experience, Michael, or can we anticipate, not right now on the spot, but can we anticipate what those costs might be year over year in adding this facility?
Sure. I started to break that down a little bit and put together an email for council. I sent over to Dane to review first. I know he was gathering feedback from council members, so we'll have to work to get that distributed to everybody. But we did look at that. The ongoing costs aren't really substantial relative to what would be taking place. You would have grass cutting, no different than you would over in the park on the other side. You'd have some small maintenance with the restroom facilities, things like that, making sure that the supplies are kept up and they're clean. So those sort of ongoing maintenance type activity would be taking place. That kind of falls in under the general public works responsibilities that occur throughout the community at other bathroom facilities or groundskeeping locations. So short of that, because we're not installing our own audio video equipment, we don't have that sort of infrastructure in place to have to maintain or upkeep or keep up with the technology that's, of course, ever changing. So really it would just be maintenance of the facility, upkeep of, whether it be painting on a somewhat regular basis, if that's what the amphitheater necessitates. But there aren't any actual determined ongoing costs because we're not installing anything at the amphitheater that would require, annual upkeep or annual investment, I guess, back into the facility. And if anything, I think this was mentioned as well, but part of the amphitheater project includes the water lines and the sanitary lines there, which are actually going to benefit some of the other aspects of the overall park. So while there is a little bit more attention that's going to have to go into this area of the park, it's also benefiting in some ways the other aspects of the park and in some ways offsets. So.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to seeing that.
Sure.
Right up. Thanks.
I just wanted to bring up something else that was mentioned in the emails. There was some concern about us actually building with $700K, not in a grant or funded in any way, being that the original cost was 75% more now than what the original estimated cost would be, the unpaid part, in a time when we're in, a period of inflation and a recession, if we shouldn't be keeping that money for the necessities rather than the amenities for right now. So I just wanted to bring that up, that was pushed across in those emails.
And I share that concern. I think we have tried to be extremely fiscally conservative in the community, and we're trying to balance the fact that this survey was done a number of years ago, and a project of this magnitude does not happen overnight, so we have been working We've been working very, very hard for many years now, and I think those of us that are up here, some of us were on Planning Commission prior, to look at funding sources, to seek those, but we also were at a very different time in the American economy when that survey was done versus where we are right now and where it looks like we're heading. And I was taking a look at our timeline again, and I guess I have a couple of questions there. So my understanding is the next big step, other than we're doing the sanitary sewer system this fall, the next big step would be February of 2023, with the next planned big step.
Yeah, I would say that once the spring hits, or end of winter really, would be where things really would pick up and start kicking into gear. And that would be when we start looking at the actual construction of the facility, or which amphitheater we want to actually purchase and install there, and begin that work. Right now they're doing earth moving, they're doing some underground work, but everything would kick into gear probably in the spring. Okay. Certainly at the earliest, but it could be pushed back if need be. But I know that if we do want to move forward on the project and try to work towards completion, we'd like to move it along sooner rather than later. So we would envision spring being when things really kick into gear.
And in terms of the grant funding for the grants that we have obtained that we would have to surrender if we didn't utilize them in a timely fashion, I think some of that shifted because of the pandemic. When's that kind of cutoff date by which we'd have to be utilizing those funds before we would lose them?
I'll try to answer that here if you just give me one moment.
Because it certainly sounds like there may be an opportunity. 3 years? 3 years. So it sounds like there may be an opportunity while we can't do much immediately with that space. There's the planned improvements that we're already utilizing that will benefit the rest of the park. No reason for those not to continue because they already benefit the community. But I don't know that it would be a bad idea to resurvey because we are at such a very different place in the community and with our population. And we could look at that.
Oh, absolutely.
It certainly wouldn't hurt. And if we see that same majority continuing to support the idea, that's validation and encouragement that we're representing the community and the needs of the community now, given the current economy. And that won't derail anything, it sounds like, given the timeline we're on and the time we have to use those funds. And should the majority of the community, step up and say, hey, hold off because the economy is in a bad place right now. Nobody up here wanted to vote to raise taxes, but we all just did for the first time in 14 years? 14 years, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that it may behoove us to take a look at the community now and the population that's here now to get a sense of that. And even if we end up pausing it, which I hope we don't, I think it would be an incredible asset to the community to expand on the park that we're already providing. But even if we pause it, it's not like we're canceling it. We're not saying never. We're not saying that space goes unused and the work that's been done, the very hard work that's gone into this. But again, we didn't predict this recession.
I like the idea of another survey.
Okay.
And is there ample time for that? I don't know everything that goes into a community survey. I know it's not just, you don't just do it overnight, but it sounds like there might be ample time for that between October and February, for example.
Sure. I do think to answer your question, the funding is to be used by the end of 23, so December of 23. Now, I don't know if that's because it came in almost two tranches. We had a first grant that was awarded. We were awarded then a second grant and consolidated those. So I don't know if that timeline can be extended. But as I can see here, and I'm sorry I don't have access to all my files, but I think December of 23 is the end of the grant. So we'd have to use the funds before then or request an extension. So if that answers your question there, and I can certainly clarify that and get back to council with a clear answer.
It would be the end of the first grant, correct? Because we've sought additional grants and continue to seek additional grants and may also have opportunities for funding sources like casino revenues, which I think, to be very clear, because somebody said that last time, does not mean we want to put a casino in Murraysville. It's rather that that fund source comes through the county for the county to distribute. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct.
But, yeah, so no casino in Murraysville, but the potential for revenue to be distributed to the community as it is elsewhere. So I think there are other funding sources, I guess is what I'm saying. But to that piece, we would have to utilize at least a portion of the grant funding by December of 2023, but that we already have at hand. But that doesn't, limit the ability to obtain or utilize future grant funding if this project had to be extended further.
That's correct. Yeah, the grants that you're referring to are both DCNR grants. We did apply for a third grant, which is for the handicapped restrooms, and that's through the county's community development block grant source of funds.
How does everybody feel about the survey? I don't want to be doing it too, but
Yeah, no,
I agree.
Yeah, a survey sounds like a good idea. Does anyone disagree? So maybe, Mike, what you can do is just look into what would go into a survey, and we can discuss it at the next meeting and try to get it out ASAP.
Okay, we can do that.
And I will also, Mike and I discussed this on the phone, and he sent me an update email. I'll share that with everyone on council, just so everyone has that information as well.
certainly appreciate, again, all of staff's hard work. I hate to sound like a downer here, but I just think it's important to recognize the hard work, but also to make sure that we're still representing the community as a whole, given the shift that we've experienced.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Okay, that was a discussion of the amphitheater project. Sounds like we have a good plan in place. That brings us to our council action items. Can I have a motion for 13A, please?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1063-22, an ordinance vacating an unopened portion of a 40-foot right-of-way situated along Route 22 between contiguous parcels bearing tax map numbers 49-14-02, -0-011 and 49-14-03-0-0125 in the municipality of Marysville.
Second.
Thank you, Jamie and Jamie. Mike?
Yes, this item, along with item 13B, are part of a vacation and right-of-way agreement with a property owner on Route 22. Both properties, or we'd be vacating a 40-foot right-of-way between those two properties. Both properties are owned by the same owner, and the right-of-way agreement would allow for emergency vehicle access to Duff Park. And just by way of further information, we have never utilized this right-of-way area for ingress or egress, nor for emergency vehicles, but the agreement would allow for that to take place in the event we would need to have emergency vehicles access the park.
Okay. We have discussed it at previous meetings, but are there any questions or concerns before it's approved?
No.
No.
Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to 13B. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to consider adoption of ordinance number 1064-22, an ordinance adopting a mutual easement and right-of-way for emergency vehicle access to Duff Park and the Westmoreland Heritage Trail along the vacated 40-foot of way situated along Route 22 between contiguous parcels bearing tax number ID 49-14-02-0-011 and 49-14-03-0-125 in the municipality of Marysville.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Mac and Carl. Mike, anything to add?
I'd echo the comments from the prior item.
Okay, council, any questions or concerns before we vote?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to 13C. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to consider the adoption, of resolution number 762-22, implementing Act 57 of 2022, amending the local tax collection law, requiring the local tax collector to waive additional charges for real estate taxes in certain situations for tax years beginning on or after January 1st, 2023.
Second. Jamie Ling.
Thank you, Tony and Jamie Lang. Mike?
Yes, this is an item that's required to be adopted by each municipality in the state that has a tax collector, a local tax collector. The state implemented the provisions you can see from Act 57, which have certain stipulations that allow for a property tax owner to have the additional penalty fees waived if they miss payment on their taxes in a year in which they may move or do a property transfer of some sort. They have to meet certain criteria, primarily showing that they did not receive, attesting to the fact that they did not receive the property tax bill and provide other verification as well. So it's a formality, but this is a new law adopted by the state and it's being passed down to the municipalities. for their local tax collectors.
I can say every municipality and school district in the state just about is passing this exact same thing, so it's very boilerplate. Questions or concerns?
No.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. That brings us to 13D. Can I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to consider authorization to advertise for a public hearing to present proposed amendments to the 2022 operating budget to be held on November 2nd, 2022 at 7 p.m.
Second.
Thank you, Jason and Tony. Mike?
The Finance Department has been working on the amendments to the 22 budget. I don't believe it to be too substantial, so we'll hold the public hearing on November 2nd, and JC will be able to present on behalf of the Finance Department the proposed amendments to the 22 budget.
Okay. Again, this is just the advertisement, so any questions or concerns about the advertisement?
No.
No.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. 13E, please. Can I have a motion?
Make a motion to advertise for a public hearing to present the 2023 operating budget to be held on November 2nd, 2022 at 7 o'clock p.m.
Second the motion.
Thank you, Jamie and Carl. Mike?
Staff is working to get the 23 operating budget finalized and distributed to council and departments, so we'll ask the hearing at the next meeting on November 2nd.
Okay. Questions or concerns? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to 14A. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to consider approval of CU-2-22 Gateway Services, Detonian Investment, Pet Crematorium, 103 Technology Lane, tax parcel 49-21-00-0-055 for use as a pet crematorium.
Second, Jamie Ling.
Thank you, Mac and Jamie. We had an in-depth presentation about this at the last meeting, but there are some representatives from the Pet Crematorium here tonight. Do we have any questions for them before we vote?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
That brings us to 14B. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve SP-5-22/CU-5-22 Lions Run Watershed Association, 2200 block of Boxcar Town Road, tax parcels 49-20-00-0-005 and 49-20-00-0-100. Penn Township parcels 55-04-00-0-005, 55-04-00-0-111, and 55-04-00-0-007 for construction of a passive mine acid treatment system.
Second.
Thank
All
you.
welcome.
Jamie Ling and Tony. Once again, we had a hearing about this at a previous meeting. We do have representatives here. Are there any questions or concerns for the representatives?
I just have 2 points of clarification, if that's okay.
Would you mind coming up to the microphone, sir?
Jamie, can I get those tax parcels again?
In the application for the conditional use, there's some residents or some landowners that are mentioned. What is the anticipated impact on the residents that are listed in the application?
I think all of the residents listed in the application, the Watershed Association has agreements with them to utilize the portions of the property that the project is on.
Okay.
So there's no, there's no unanticipated impacts on those.
When I look at the drawing, a lot of it looked across the street, if you will, from a lot of those properties, or in front of, say, the
Conservancy property.
Yes.
Yeah, so there is a property across the road. The Conservancy, is not directly impacted by the property or by the project. The neighboring property, there is one of the seeps is on that property, so there's some conveyance piping that's going to pick up that seep and convey it over to the treatment facility.
Okay.
So that's why they're included on the application.
Okay, and then the second point of clarification was on the long-term maintenance of this, and I think it was mentioned that the Lions Run Watershed Association would care for the ongoing maintenance that needs to occur throughout the years.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And if they run out of money, then we fill it in, or the municipality would have to take it over?
I mean, I guess relative to that, you know, you do have, I think, some conditions relative to developers' agreements, long-term operation and maintenance of that. Whether or not the cost to maintain those facilities long-term comes into question, you know, I don't know offhand if that's been planned, or if the municipality typically has, you know, a process that they would like to see in place for that. You know, whether that's maybe a restriction, you know, deed-based things or something like that. You know, if there are recommendations, those are things that we can certainly consider.
Okay, this one looks a lot less maintenance than the active presentation. There was an active treatment plant proposed months ago that was more in the export area.
Yeah, no, this is different than that. Passive treatment system. It's just mainly open basins with some limestone at the bottom. More or less an earthwork operation with some piping.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Is there a bond associated with the project?
Ben, is there a bond associated with the project?
The contractor would have to have a bond for completion of the work.
Could you repeat that? Just so
Yes, the contractor building the project will be required to have a bond to complete the work.
Any other questions or concerns? No. Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. That brings us to 15A. Can I have a motion, please?
Consider reducing the letter of credit held to ensure completion of the required improvements at the Reagan Ridge development by $175,000, $122.
Second.
Thank you, Carl and Tony. Mike?
That's correct. The reduction is $175,000, which would leave a value of $269,588 remaining being held to ensure completion.
Okay. Questions or concerns?
It's looking beautiful.
Yeah, they've done a great
It
job.
really is.
Yeah, really nice.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. That brings us to 15B. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to enter into an excess maintenance agreement, the Eastern Gas Transmission and Storage, Inc., to utilize 1.42 miles of Old William Penn Highway and 0.04 miles of Borland Farm Road to haul to an existing pipeline right-of-way for the purpose of installing zinc ribbon along certain portions of the pipeline for a total of 1.46 miles of Murrysville roads.
Second.
Thank you, Jamie and Tony. Mike?
Yes, the anticipated truck traffic is only 14 trips. They have posted a bond in the amount of $18,250.
Okay. Pretty standard. Questions or concerns from council? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Okay, nothing under Public Works and Parks. Does anyone have any old business this evening?
Nope.
Any new business from anyone? Okay, hearing none. I think we only need one more motion. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.